Good morning. Second by Councilmember King. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. So ordered. Ms. Curran, next item on the agenda.
Ordinance calendar number 35,037, calling for an election on October 11th, 2025, at which the electors of the city will be asked to approve an amendment to the Home Rule Charter Bill of Rights.
If we could have the presenters come to the table, please, and start your presentation. Identify each presenter, and then you guys can proceed in the order that you see fit.
Good morning, everybody. This is Bruce Riley, Deputy Director of VOTE.
Good morning, Monique Blossom, Director of Policy at Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center.
Jared Wall, PhD student at Tulane University and Justice Initiative's Research Fellow for Education Trust in DC.
Good morning. My name is Rhonda Oliver. I'm the Executive Director of Women Determined.
Great morning. Patrick Young, Director of Economic Empowerment for 72 Plus.
Good morning. Ronald Marshall, Chief Policy Analyst at Voice of Experiments. Good to be with you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this morning we're going to talk about...
Make sure Mr. Marshall's mic is working.
Hello? Yeah, y'all good.
Marshall.
I really appreciate y'all having us here today. My colleagues and I want to talk to y'all about something that's very troubling in the city, all around the country, really. We're asking this body, this legislative body, to make formerly incarcerated people, people with conviction history, a protected class in the city of New Orleans. What that means, that would make it illegal to discriminate on the basis of that felony conviction, which is a huge problem. And I have a slide deck that I'm going to go through just to show you some numbers, to show you how it looks. When you protect formerly incarcerated people, you actually increase public safety, you actually increase economic growth. And each of my colleagues here has an expert, subject matter expertise, and they're going to speak to you about that particular thing when we get to that particular thing. How do you work this slide deck? So, oh, it doesn't work? Okay. Okay. I got it. So the reason we're here today, like I said, is to ask this body to amend, add two words, conviction history, into the Bill of Rights, which will make it illegal to discriminate against formerly incarcerated people or people with conviction history. Why it matters. Discrimination in any state or any locale increases recidivism. It affects public safety. When you discriminate against formerly incarcerated people, you actually put the public at danger. And the key message that I want you all to get today, protecting formerly incarcerated people protects public safety and increases economic growth. Just keep your, as I go to the slide deck, just remember that. Protecting formerly incarcerated people increases public safety and increases economic development. And this data is taken directly from the City Council's website. In 2004, there was 140,000 people arrested in the city of New Orleans. 5 years later, there was close to 93,000 more people arrested in the city of New Orleans. A 20-year impact. In 20 years, 1 million people was arrested in the city of New Orleans. And when you do the numbers, I took a lowball figure, 30% likely convicted. At 140,000 arrests in 2004, 42,000 people was estimated convicted in 2004. And 5 years later, you have 92,000 people with a 27,000 people convicted. That's close to 70,000 people convicted in just 2 years alone. In 2 years. And when you factor in 1 million people was arrested in the city of New Orleans in 20 years, there's 300,000 people likely convicted in this city. And today, New Orleans only have a population of, I believe, 364,000 people. And that's factoring in the recidivism. We can reduce the number to maybe 150,000 to remove the people who reoffended, was rearrested and reconvicted. You still have a large demographic of people in the city of New Orleans who have conviction history status. The need for this amendment, there are legal gaps. Like, for instance, the Ban the Box initiative that this city passed a couple of years ago, the only thing the Ban the Box does is basically remove that box from the application. Employers can still, housing providers, employment providers can still discriminate after the background check or even during the interview. We have stories from our just impacted people who want to tell you a story how they have been discriminated against. Housing limitations, Mr. Bruce Riley is going to speak to the housing limitations when it's time to speak with the next slide. And the financial barriers. I mean, as a former incarcerated person, I know the financial barrier that we face in the country. And Patrick Young is going to speak to that when we get to that piece of this PowerPoint. And this is where Mr. Bruce Riley comes in there, the importance of this amendment as it relates to housing.
Thank you, members of the council. Bruce Riley with VOTE. I think, as you know, housing is a very difficult situation across the country, potentially as bad here as anywhere for all the different reasons of trying to find available housing. We have people taking away housing stock. We have, just the supply and demand. We have the problem with building housing, especially affordable housing. And people who have conviction histories and their families face the added problem of generally having to fill out a background check and paying to do that. And one of the real big flaws in that system is also the fact that you're paying for something and you don't even know what you're paying for. You're probably paying for your own discrimination. And so you don't know up front what crimes are going to trigger some type of further review or some kind of negative result. You don't know how long ago it had to have been. You don't know what status it is. You don't know if they're going to hear you out at all. And a lot of rental companies are run by corporations. They're run by algorithms. Maybe you pay a fee for, $50 a month, and you're allowed to send all your background checks through this system as a landlord. A lot of corporate landlords own lots of properties, not just the mom and pop that people always like to characterize as landlords. As we know, that's a shrinking landlord profile here in New Orleans. And so you pay your $50, you find out that you're denied. You don't get your $50 back. There's no rules on all that. Let's just say you have a serious crime, but it's 30 years ago. Let's say you have a petty crime, but it's 30 days ago. Which one is more impactful? Well, maybe it depends on the algorithms being used, which you don't know what it is. And so people are paying for something that is not of any service to them. It's a service to the landlord. And anyone who goes to apply for a job, especially if it's a low-wage job, you're not paying for your own demise. Right? If you want to do a check on somebody as the employer, as the landlord, the person who's getting the money, that should be your responsibility. But the problem with that is I illustrated just to show that there's a million ways to rent property. Now this is a business decision. This isn't trying to find a roommate on Craigslist. You've chosen to invest in property in our city and become a commercial transactor of people's homes. And so you're subject to regulation. Anytime you do commercial activity, you're subject to regulation. And we know this body struggles with the short-term rental problem back and forth for some years now. This is something we should be struggling with. We should be going back and forth with. And we should be challenging landlords, particularly corporate landlords, who choose to invest in our city. As Ronald said, it's not making our city safer, because when you deny people housing, well, then what? Well, then they got to kick the can down the road. They look again, deny them again, then what? Eventually, you're left to just your own devices, and you say, well, no one's going to rent me a place. I have a job, I have money, and I can't find a place. Well, what about the person who doesn't have a job, or who doesn't have money, who's maybe trying to go from pillar to post to find their way towards some stability? So we have people in this city who, through their investments, are making us less safe. And we've tried work with Hannah, we've tried work with HUD. We've made some gains over the last decade in this country and in this city. And this is the type of thing where we have to say to our landlords, listen, there's plenty of reasons not to rent a place to so-and-so. This shouldn't be one of them. In the same way, being a family shouldn't be one of them. Being black shouldn't be one of them. Being a woman shouldn't be one of them. And simply having a felony conviction history should not be one of them. Thank you.
And real quick, just to get some context, so this is the Bill of Rights that we're asking this legislative body to amend. But we've also been working with Councilman Thomas' office. We've also amended Chapter 86, as well as ban the box, but that's going to come up in another hearing. But it works in tandem with the Bill of Rights. This is just the foundation, this is the first step to making formerly incarcerated people protected class. Chapter 86 deals with all the procedure and safeguards to ensure that people who have that conviction history is not discriminated against in the city of New Orleans, and I will present that piece of legislation to you all when the time comes. And we also amended the ban of box to put a little more teeth in it to ensure that we're not being discriminated as a result of that immutable characteristic. Next, we're going to talk about the economic advantages of making formerly incarcerated people or people with conviction history a protected class. And I'm going to let Patrick Young speak to this real quick.
Great morning. When we talk about economic development simply means quality of life, quality of community. We have seen from the council over the years how important it is to make sure that we're driving home a good budget, making sure that taxpayers are not wasting money in the city of New Orleans. But when we consider the cost benefit versus the cost deficit of taxpayers to hire or to deal with people who are formerly incarcerated, if we examine that, then it is to the economic development and economic benefit that this passes. And why is that? It's a numbers thing. There are four drivers, primarily economic development. Your first is always going to be employment. Your second is always housing. Third is credit and sales. And the fourth is ownership. When we think of the Super Bowl and why it was such a big economic booster for the city was because we had people who came in and were able to use their dollars and spend it within our community. But just imagine being bored from your own community, not being able to access any of these hotels, any of these housing establishments, not being able to provide any type of money to support the growth of your own community. And that's what economic disenfranchisement does when you're formerly incarcerated. Right now, if you're formerly incarcerated, you're 75% to be unemployed. Employers, there are 60% of employers who are saying that they have issues with hiring people with convictions. You're 10 times as likely to be homeless with a conviction. And why are all these barriers in place? Simply because you have that conviction. Removing this, we begin now to add money to the economy. So there's $350 million worth of new wages if employers hire people with convictions. There's $25.5 million in tax revenue that can be generated to the state if we allow people with convictions to get their employment, but also contribute not only federal taxes, but state taxes. And then lastly, you can't see this slide, but...
Yeah, so the $525 million, so speaking to Patrick's point, let's say, for instance, the city of New Orleans approved this initiative and people in New Orleans become a protected class, and you allow 10,000 people, just 10,000, just say 10,000 formerly incarcerated people are now able to work because they're not being discriminated against, and they're making at least $35,000 a year. $35,000 times 10,000 will boost the economy by $350 million. $350 million. That's taxable by $25.5 million. That number, that 525, that's the number that's going to, an additional $175 million will generate as a result of reinvestments, tax credits, and things of that nature. But the kick is this. The city of New Orleans will save $25 million in correctional budget as a result of 10,000 people not being in the system who are actually working. So this is a huge economic advantage for the city of New Orleans to allow formerly incarcerated people to work without those barriers.
One more thing. So we're talking about the advantages. The disadvantages right now, the city of New Orleans spends over $265 million on criminal justice expenses. The annual cost of incarceration is $30,000 per individual. And that is a total of $50 million in potential wage losses each year. So when we talk about the numbers of what's making sure that the city is spending money properly and making sure that we're at the advantage to compare to other cities. Well, how much money are we effectively spending and how much are we wasting on trying to incarcerate versus investments?
And you mentioned Patrick's point, and I'm just thinking about, like, I know we're all from New Orleans, we ride around our city a lot, and you're probably wondering, okay, wow, if this affects a large number of people, why they're not in the room? Why they're not here to testify? Where are these people at? Why they're not here to complain? One, there is a shame, a stigma associated with being a former incarcerated person who is homeless and who is jobless. People are ashamed of that. I have friends who are ashamed to tell me that they're living in their car. I have friends who are considered legends in the city, but when you see them, they're pushing or pulling an ice bucket with cold drinks in it through the French quarters. That's their money. They're entrepreneurs. The party buses, many of the men who drive the party buses, some of them are former incarcerated. The homelessness, many of them are former incarcerated. That's how it looks. That's humanizing the data, so you can see. That's how it looks. When you see youngsters, young people, and cycling in and out between poverty and that jail, that's homelessness. I work in the jail as a trauma-informed facilitator, and I go in that jail every Friday. And one of the things I notice when I go in that jail to teach my trauma class, I ask the brother, man, what are you doing here? He said, man, I have to get off the street, get some rest, get something to take a shower. Because they're homeless, they can't find a job. You wonder why the recidivism rate is like a cycle? That's why. People use the jail as a sanctuary to get something to eat, to get a good night's sleep, and take a shower, and then they're back on the street. That's how bad it is for some of us. Public safety impact. Employment reduces recidivism. This is a real life story. Last year, November the 12th, my oldest son was killed. He was released. He had been home 18 months. I knew his story because I was hands-on his story every single day. From the day he walked out of prison, I picked him up from Elaine Hunt. And from that point on, I brought him to job interview after job interview after job interview, temp services, picking him up, get rejected. He called me at least 9 times in 18 months. 9 times in 18 months. The last time he was terminated, I brought him in to Howard to get a urine test. And he go to the urine test, he passed the urine test, and the reason for the urine test because he was being hired by the union from the temp service. So he passed the urine test, went to work the next day, he said, damn, I'm gonna get this job. Urine test come back clean. They did a background check. Found out he had a felony conviction, they terminated him that same day. And the reason I say this because I would never forget the frustration. My son tried. He tried to find his place in the workforce. He tried. I was there picking him up, waking up 2 o'clock in the morning, bringing him to the sanitary department, picking him up when he got off at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was there with him. But every step he made, he was terminated as a result of that conviction. And the last time he was terminated, he said, Dad, you know what? I'm sick of this. He got 5 children. He can't afford his family. You know what happens? Survival of the fittest kicks in. Frustration kicks in. Anger kicks in. And now he's dead. He's dead because he had to make a decision to take care of himself. In fact, he was robbed and killed in the city of California because he was in a game, trying to make money to provide for his family. The only way many of our kids and our young people know how to survive when they've been blackballed. And that's my son's story. And I just want to bring him in this space because he died as a result of not having those protections. Nothing I could do about it, nothing we could do about it. He was legally discriminated against for being a formerly incarcerated person who had all the willingness and the skills to make it better for his life, but he was blackballed. Like thousands of us in this country are oftentimes blackballed as a result of that felony conviction. And we ask this legislative body to please change that. And I have another story here that's deeply frustrating, deeply powerful, deeply emotional. I'm going to pass the microphone to Rhonda Oliver so she just can share a little bit of her story while she's here.
Great morning, everyone. My name is Rhonda Oliver, and I want like to just tell my story, what I experienced as a formerly incarcerated person here working at the City of New Orleans. I was released from prison in 2015, and I landed a job with the Department of Code Enforcement. I read the policy, did what was necessary to work up, and was promoted several times. Went back to school, obtained a bachelor's degree, took the test that was necessary. I contacted someone from Sewage and Water Board, Latricia Matthews, letting them know, hey, I just got a bachelor's degree, and I'm trying to get in one of these accounting positions that's been open. And the lady was very excited to learn. At that time, I was promoted to Sewage and Water Board, and she said, you work at Sewage and Water Board? And I said, yes, ma'am, I'm here in the billing department. She said, could you come upstairs? And I said, sure. So when she saw me, she said, did you pass the civil service test? I said, yes, ma'am, I did. She said, are you on the registry? I said, yes, ma'am, I am. And she was very excited to learn that someone who's working at Sewage and Water Board had already passed the test because they was in need of accountants. This was early part of October of last year. So Ms. Latricia Matthews then said, we're going to hire you. We're going to start you on October the 21st because we don't like starting people in the middle of a pay period. I was very excited to know that finally I was able to get in at a position that's paying, starting off with $60,000. So I go back downstairs, and she said she was going to contact me the next day, and we have emails of this. The next day, she didn't contact me, so I contacted her, and this excited woman was no longer excited. And I said, ma'am, I said, I was waiting to hear from you. And she said, oh, I contacted civil service. We qualify. We need a 2, not a 1. I said, well, a 1 can also be a 2. It's up to you. No, we're looking for a 2. Well, I qualified to be a 2 also. Well, no, when we get a 2, then we'll come reach out to you. So I said, thank you, ma'am. So then I was promoted to the Department of Finance as a tax preparer, as a tax specialist. And so, I'm sorry, waiting to get an accounting position in that department. So I was hired at the Department of Finance on September the 4th of 2023. And on January the 26th, 2024, I was called to the office and they said, Ms. Courtney Wilson said, Ms. Oliver, you're not a good fit. And I said, I'm not a good fit? And she says, no, you're not a good fit. And I thanked her and walked out the office. And then I began to follow the ban-the-box policy that states that if you believe that you were terminated because you're formerly incarcerated, then email Mr. Gilbert Martano. Did that, no response. Emailed the mayor, no response. Emailed Ms. Hamilton, no response. I have 4 emails from civil service. You passed the test for accountant 1, data analyst, auditor. All these positions paying $60,000 upward. But nobody has yet called me for any of these positions. Again, I stated that I was terminated from the Department of Finance, and nobody said anything. Nobody responded, so I appealed to the 4th Circuit Court. And on November the 12th, I argued my case against the city attorney in the 4th Circuit Court of Appeal, and I won. And the judges asked the city of New Orleans over and over again, why was she fired? And nobody was able to answer. So now, the city of New Orleans is appealing to the Supreme Court. And Ms. Denisha Turner stated, Ms. Oliver's case is impacting the entire city. Why? Follow the policy. The policy tells you exactly what needs to be done. And it says that if you've been pardoned by the state of Louisiana, you shouldn't have any problems. However, I'm having a problem landing these jobs. That's on, all of them on the list. And the only thing that's stopping me, because I know that I am amongst the best and the brightest, but I am a formerly incarcerated person. So the ban-the-box policy is not working. I have everything this policy says. And right now, we have a city attorney that's asking the Supreme Court to tell them what to do. Because Rhonda Oliver's case, this is just filed by the city of New Orleans, is impacting the entire city. This should not be. The policy is broken, and the policy does not work. And being that it doesn't work, I'm out of work. Something needs to be done. Thank you.
You know, Rhonda's case is unique only because Rhonda was a jailhouse lawyer like myself and Bruce Riley on the inside. But there's so many more of us who don't have the legal mind to fight back like Rhonda. So we're here not because of myself. I haven't faced discrimination in housing. I never faced discrimination in employment because Mr. Norris Henderson and VOTE made it possible for me to land a job, and my family made it possible for me to have some place to stay. So I don't know what discrimination feels like. But I can tell you this, all of my friends, and I'm formerly incarcerated. I spent 25 years of my life in Angola, in the Department of Corrections. All of my friends, I know their stories. So I'm sitting here not because of myself, I'm sitting here because of them. When they call me, ask me for $20 and $35, I tell them, I gotta give you 10, bro, because I can't give that type of money every day to 15, 20 men and still take care of my family and salary I make. But I do what I can for them every time they call me. Every time they call me, come pick me up, I need a ride here, I go get them. Bring me to this job, and I'm trying to get this guy, go get them. Because everybody's hand I shake on a day-to-day basis, they're formerly incarcerated and they're discriminated against, and they don't have the legal mind like Rhonda to file a plea into a court to fight for themselves. So we're asking this legislative body to help us to protect our most vulnerable population in the city of New Orleans. And the reason for these protections is simple. Here's some, if you look on the board, we have the protected class status for race and gender. If you recall, before Martin Luther King and all our civil rights icons walked this earth, black people, women, we face significant barriers because of that immutable trait that we call black skin. It wasn't until after the civil rights era that blacks began to find upward economic mobility. It wasn't because of those protections that women were acknowledged and treated a little better than it was being treated pre-civil rights legislation. And then we have disability protections. This is a vulnerable population of people. If you look around, in every city you go in, every building you go to, there is accessibility ramps for that group of people. Prior to the disability protections, there weren't many ramps for our disabled population. They was forced to get out their wheelchair and pick their wheelchair up. The protections make it easy for people to move along in life. And the disability protections is a physical manifestation of how when you create protection for people, you give them on-ramps into society. You give them inroads into society. That's what the disability protection has done for that population. And then we have the veterans. At one time, no one wanted to hire a veteran because of the PTSD. But now, because veterans have protection, they find some economic mobility. They're protected and loved. They're able to get on with their life and build for their family. It's wraparound services. I watched the OJJ come here last Monday, and that administrative body, they wrapped their package up, their initiative up as wraparound service for the kids. And I mean, this entire legislative body who attended that hearing Monday, there was a total agreement that those kids needed wraparound services. What the protected class for formerly incarcerated people is wraparound services for adults. We need the wraparound services. You have close to 100,000 people in this city who are suffering that conviction history. And you talk about the crime problem, guess what? This is a step to alleviate some of that crime problem. If you wave a flag and say, hey, everybody in the city of New Orleans with that felony conviction, I have a job for you. You're able to work now. I guarantee you that crime problem will decrease. Trust me. I'm from this city. I'm from the Ninth Ward. I grew up in the projects. When people have access to jobs, it's not they don't want to work. Formerly incarcerated people want to work. We would tear down a building to work. We worked for 2 cents an hour for the state while I was incarcerated. Do you not think they would not want to work for $8 or $10 or $15 an hour after working for 2 cents for 20 years? Of course. They willingly work for 2 cents an hour while incarcerated. And now when they come home, they don't have the same access to work. And you wonder why you have a crime problem. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons. And we have an opportunity to take a big chunk out of that crime problem by making former incarcerated people a protected class and giving them, making discrimination against that group of people illegal. You want to reduce the crime problem? Make it illegal to discriminate against that demographic of people. And I guarantee you, over time, the crime problem will decrease some more. It's good now, but it will decrease some more. And I have one more story I want to share. I'm going to pass the mic to Jared Walker. His story is equally powerful as Rhonda's story.
Thank you, Ron, and thank the council members to be able to speak this morning. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Jared Wall. I served 26 years in Indiana. I've been in rural Orleans since 2019. I just want to tell you a little bit about my story, what led me there. I originally began wanting to be a therapist, and because of the blocks for licensure, how I had to change careers. In 1989, I was 17.
All right.
Facing 60 years for the death penalty. The attorney walks in and I say, "How are you? Okay, anything?" He says, "Why did you do it?" And I couldn't answer it. Because at 17, I didn't yet have the concepts, didn't understand my life, what had happened to me. I didn't have the concepts, understand trauma. I didn't even have the language to wrap around my experience. So not being able to answer him, "Why did you do it?" to be honest, frightened me. Because if I was capable of that and didn't know why, then what else could happen? So it became, at 17 years old, I knew I had to answer that question, "Why did you do it?" to and for myself. That was the beginning of my adult life. When I got to maximum security prison, jailhouse lawyer read over my case, and he saw some obvious red flags. And we sat down and we talked, and he became the first person in my life that I ever really shared my background with and talked to him. And he says, "Hey, you know what?" He says, "I have this friend over in the psych office. She's a therapist." He says, why don't you see her?" Well, you know what? He trusted her. I trusted him. So I went. He was a peer and a mentor to me. And that is the point that began saving my life. So I was fortunate during my incarceration to go through all sorts of therapy, individual therapy, group therapy, couple different bouts of anger management. First one, I probably learned that depression is anger triggering. Second, I learned that anger is a secondary emotion, so there's usually a hurt or something that happened first. After like 10 to 12 years, I was finally able to answer that question to and for myself, "Why did you do it?" And that made all the difference. Around 12 years also, I went back to court knowing that I had one shot, one opportunity, and I got denied in a pretty ugly way too. So I go back and I have to face the fact that I'm about to serve my entire sentence. And so I knew my bones, I knew my intuition. A lot of this had come through skills that I learned with therapy and just a sense of knowing what I had to do for self-care. And I sat in the dark during every rec period because I could be alone in my room. I would just face that fact that I'm going to serve this time. I never had a normal life. It was like I could see the eyes of the children I would never have. After about a month or so, I was able to keep facing that, accept it, and move on. Around the same time, I realized I wanted to be a therapist because of what the therapeutic, dyad had done for me. And so I already at this point had my GED associate and a bachelor degree that I earned in prison. And I earned another bachelor degree in psychology because I wanted to be able to help those who had similar experience, my people. So I'd get interested in, like Gestalt psychology. I'd study a stack of books, Jungian psychology, another stack, post-Jungians, another, Adler, mindfulness-based therapies, acceptance and commitment therapy. During the rest of my bit, I was always studying psychology. And in the last year, I literally every day studied psychology, trying to prepare myself to go to graduate school with the goal of becoming a therapist. So I got out, had to study 6 to 8 hours every day to be able to take the GRE to be prepared. I took it, I got the scores I needed. I applied to my alma mater, from whom I had earned 3 degrees and ran their college program inside for 12 years. And they denied me because of a 1989 conviction when I was 17 years old. Ended up, I was being denied by my alma mater for 3 years in a row. In the meantime, I was accepted by a less prestigious local private university where I was working toward a master's of counseling. And I was actually a counselor in training. My person who had oversaw me, my supervisor, she would call me in different times for me to help her even on certain areas that she felt like I had more of an expertise in. But it ended up, as I'm progressing through this program, it became pretty apparent how difficult it was going to be to achieve licensure. One of my professors even spoke to someone on the state board, a friend of his, and the person told me, never. So at this point, it was the halfway point. I could get a Master of Psychology versus at 30 hours versus a 60-hour Master of Counseling. And I decided I had to stop at that point. Already $30,000 in student debt. So I started applying to PhD programs, which I knew would broaden the scope. It would, give me more possibilities of what I could do. But I was denied another 3 years trying to get into PhD programs throughout the country. Again, because of the criminal legal background. So during this period, I have 2 bachelors, I have 2 masters, and I'm working a job making $9 to $12 an hour at wood flooring. There's nothing wrong, of course, with wood flooring, but I was waking up to a life every day that I didn't want to live. I felt I was wasting more years of my life when what I wanted to do is I wanted to help other people as I had been helped. During this period of 3 years, I had to fight despair, depression, I had to fight alcoholism. It was a very discouraging period. I'm grateful I had the resilience and the skill sets of having therapy for so many years, and I had a solid family support too. Around this point, a professor from Auburn University sat me down and he says, look, you can probably become a therapist someday. He said, this has to happen, then this, then this, then this. Probably can happen when the stars align right. He says, but you're not young anymore. You can't do 26 years and still be young. He says, how long do you want to wait? When you can be doing good work by spreading your scope and not necessarily trying for licensure. So it's when he said that I looked down here and saw the same restrictions on licensure to become a counselor. But one thing that did happen down here is Louisiana is the first state in the nation to ban the box at public universities. And Tulane had followed suit when that happened. So ended up people down here reached out to me, and I ended up applying for the program and got accepted. It took me about 3 years to get over having to shift my profession. It's like, I feel like so few people have a sense of calling or vocation of what they're supposed to do in life. And I had that and I couldn't do it. Now, I work in a field called higher education in prison. I work with college prison programs. I've taught inside just like I've taught on campus. I research, I'm an evaluator, I'm a coach, and I work with policy. But it's not the profession I really wanted to be. I feel I'm doing good work right now, working in the field of higher education and prison. My dissertation, I'm doing my data analysis right now. It's on a novel topic, so it's something new. It's going to add to the field. But while it's interesting, it might even be useful, it's not the most pressing issue, I believe, for our population. During my dissertation interviews, even though I'm talking to people about their college experience inside, there's all these lingering effects of trauma that are coming in through on these interviews. And that's not even the subject of my inquiry. I have people telling me, hey, I've been out 9 months and I can't sleep. Did you have that? I'm like, yes. I have different dreams about being in prison still, the violence, or that I'm out and I'm going to get locked, the fear of going to be locked up again. Have you had those? Yeah. People talking about how they don't fit in anywhere. One young lady spoke of a 2-month depression she had after her release because she had left her social support system on the inside. So many of us live in this state because of prison from, fight or flight. And it's our default mode we've learned to live with, and a lot of us don't even know it. I know it because I've been through it. Interesting, I talked to several people that go back into prisons that are formerly incarcerated to try to do work in my field, higher ed in prison, and they're talking to me about the trauma effects they're having from doing so. One person, he told me that the last visit he had went to in Baltimore, basically for the next 3 weeks, he said he would just break out crying. When I graduate, more of this trauma of people going inside, the secondary trauma they're experiencing, more of what our population experiences with trauma and the readjustment for reentry, these are going to be my areas of research. So I'm eager to graduate and move on to that. Basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing the research to inform other people who can be counselors when I have the lived experience and the education that I could be doing that myself. I could have been doing it already. So it doesn't just do me a disservice. It's, okay, yeah, so I had disappointment. My life's course went differently than I expected. I have student debt. Yeah, it does affect me. But I feel like it affects our population. All those people that Ronald were talking about that have been arrested, that are formerly incarcerated. We are an underserved population when it comes to mental health. We need all the mental health people we can get, workers, but we need competent people. We need people who understand what we've gone through. We really need people with experience, people with lived experience to be able to work with people who are living the experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Jared. I was just sitting here just thinking about Jared's story. Jared had the alternative decision between two positives. A negative and a good positive. Even though he couldn't do the work he wanted to do, he was able to do other work in another area, even though that wasn't his desire. And I think about the many women and men I talk to every day, because I am boots on the ground in New Orleans, in this community. I'm connected to so many justice-impacted people. They don't have that alternative, positive outcome to do something other than not when they're unable to do the thing that they want to do, like work. Their alternative is that subculture that we dislike. And a symptom, the traumas, when you wake up every morning and you're jobless, that's a trauma. And that trauma rattles your nerves. It stresses you out. You wake up every morning, you're homeless, that's a trauma. And a symptom of that trauma leads to alcoholism and drug addiction. There are so many collateral consequences associated with joblessness and unemployment. If you look at that chart, the statistical data on the board, You can't see this as a PDF file, but it's interactive on my page. But the unemployment rate after 4 years, it increases from 6 months to 4 years, that percentage increases. But the most significant data set on this chart is this. If you look at the bottom, United States peak. In the 1930s, the United States saw the worst joblessness or economic depression in the history of this country. Well, guess what? Formerly incarcerated people, we are 5 times worse than the Great Depression of the 1930s. That's how bad it is for that. It's 120 million of us in this country. 120 million. 150,000 right here in the city of New Orleans. And many of us are cycling between homelessness, unemployment. You know what, when you have a formerly incarcerated person who has found upper mobility, it's not because of a job. It's because they was forced to make that decision to become an entrepreneur. And many of us don't have that entrepreneur spirit to build a business from the ground up, and it becomes marketable, it becomes historic. Many of us don't have that ability to do it. Some of us depend upon other systems to find jobs, to find work. And when those systems are not available to us, then we're basically banned from inroads into mainstream society. And people are cycling out of this on the outskirts of society, walking around the wilderness with backpacks. Just pay attention. I'm going to give you some glasses so you can see your city. When you're driving home every day, when you go from here to your house to a school, pay attention to the people who have backsacks on their back, the older men. Pay attention to them hanging on different street corners. Pay attention to them pulling the ice cream bucket. Pay attention to them driving those little carts in the city. Many of them are entrepreneurs as a result of their felony conviction. And there is a case law that says this. A group of people should be considered a protected class if they can show that they have an immutable characteristic that forms the basis for the discrimination. Like black skin form the basis for discrimination. That felony conviction, even if it's expunged, it still forms the basis for discrimination. If we can show that that group of people are powerless in the political process, former incarcerated people have to fight for their voting rights. Some of us can't vote if we're on parole or probation. Then they have this other characteristic that say if you cannot participate in the political process. All this criteria shows us that former incarcerated people should be protected because we meet this criteria. And it's all we're asking this legislative body to do. Give us a shot. Help us to become better human beings. Help us to help the city to thrive. Help us to reduce the crime rate. Help us to protect public safety. Help us to increase the economic growth of this community. That's all we're asking. Just give us some protections in law. The same protections that other demographics of people have. They suffered all of these bad things prior to them being protected in law. And when you say protections, protection in law basically means that you're giving us a remedy at law to hold the actors of discrimination liable. And that's going to come out in Chapter 86 when we get to it. But we have to amend this Bill of Rights, which is the city's constitution, in order for us to amend Chapter 86, which has already been amended with the staff attorney Dominique Lane. She already have a copy. That's another conversation. But that's the teeth. That's the meat of what we're doing here today. And I'm going to conclude my point. I'm really emotional right now. And I just want to have my colleagues have anything they want to say before we close.
One thing I want to point out is that this is not a new idea concept. In 2022, Atlanta amended its civil rights ordinance to include criminal history as a protected class, ensuring fair access to employment. They increased their employment economic opportunity by 42%. In Kansas City, Missouri, in 2025, Kansas City expanded its civil rights protections to cover individuals with criminal records, reinforcing its commitment to social justice. And in 2024, Washington, D.C. had a fair hiring policy that led to 33% increase in employment rates for justice impacted individuals. This is proven that the economic benefits isn't just a tax burden, but it's a tax benefit for this amendment to pass. And it's already being done in other cities. New Orleans can also have the reform and be leading in these efforts as well. Because we'll be one of the only southern cities really with the draw to really make an impact with this full amendment.
Well, I would like to add one more thing also. Right now in this country, we have a president who is firing people on probation. When I hear about that and people being alarmed, I said, don't be alarmed because the city of New Orleans does the same thing. I'm a probationary employee, and somebody pointed their finger at me, and without reason, they fired me. But the policy prohibits it. But for decades in the city of New Orleans, my research shows that people have been fired because they are on probation, and I can fire you for any reason. But the Fourth Circuit Court says no. So right now, we are fighting, they are fighting me, but they're losing, and Denisha Turner is now saying, where do we go from here to the policy? Thank you.
Thank you. Any, Councilmember Morrell, comments from the council members?
Yeah, I got a lot to say, and I know everyone here, I know Bruce, I know Norris, and I am always very candid whether it gets me in trouble or doesn't get me in trouble. I promise y'all gonna like half of what I'm gonna say. You're probably not gonna like the other half. I want to start by talking about Jared. I appreciate your story. I know I worked with Norris and Bruce on Raise the Age for that specific purpose. We should not be incarcerating 15, 16, 17-year-olds adults because their brains are not developed, and we have a governor now with a whole horde of DAs that's doing everything possible to regress back to locking up people as quickly as possible. I think that the citizens of the state spoke very loudly when they rejected the four amendments, because one of those was literally about making it easier to lock up children. So that was, I will say honestly, a pleasant surprise, just because I know from my work at the state level, it seems like everybody's always trying to lock up kids. Ms. Oliver, I'm very sorry for what you've been through. And I say that because I had my staff go look, and the last email we got from you was you looking out for a fellow Sewage and Water Board employee who was being screwed over by Sewage and Water Board.
Yes.
I mean, you are the kind of person we want in government, and I want to applaud you for your bravery in speaking out. I will tell you, and many people who frequent the council chambers know, we are pretty much in perpetual disagreement with the city attorney's office on almost everything they're doing. And they have made it very clear, and our district courts have made it very clear, that we are not allowed to tell them what to do. And on several pieces of litigation, and this would be one of them, I had no idea this case was happening. And I'll tell you what's very interesting to me, for the city attorney to put in a brief that this affects the future of the city of New Orleans, and this council's never been briefed on your case, tells you that's BS.
Yes.
Just full-on BS. If your case was going to undo the city of New Orleans, you would think in our almost weekly legal briefings, it would have come up. It never has.
Yes.
I will tell you that your case represents the fundamental failure of Ban the Box. The fact that your appeals process goes to Gilbert Montano first, and that he is the arbiter of your fate, tells you it's fundamentally unfair. That is the most subjective process you could possibly imagine, that if you feel like you're discriminated against, you don't go to a panel of people that are independent outside the city of New Orleans. No one reviews your case in an objective, not subjective manner. A guy who works directly for the mayor, who's okay with the people that fired you, gets to give you a thumbs up or thumbs down, right? That's basically how it goes.
Yes.
And I appreciate, I'll look forward to whatever legislation they're filing to see how I can help improve it, because that has to fundamentally be fixed. Now here's like where the bad news kind of comes up. I want to be very clear for level setting. When we amend the charter, that affects the city, not private industries. Your situation in particular speaks to the need to do it, but I don't want people to think that if we do this and you walk into McDonald's and they don't give you a job, you've got a new right. There's a whole section of the Bill of Rights, the last section is 13. The Bill of Rights shall not create enforceable rights, duties, obligations, or causes of action under the Charter beyond those guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States, Constitution of the State of Louisiana. The problem we have is that even if we as a city recognize the formerly incarcerated as a protected class, that only applies to us. Now that being said, we as a city should lead by example.
Right.
If we're discriminating against the formerly incarcerated, how are we going to tell private businesses you shouldn't, especially when we're making you, and I mean, I am so frustrated and so enraged by the fact that you are having to spend all the money and time to go through a legal process to defend yourself while the unlimited resources of the city are being used against you. And it speaks to fundamentally a problem that has to be addressed. Now, there's one thing in here, I support this amendment, but I do want to kind of highlight some challenges I think we're going to have to go through. Now, the language of the amendment itself, I think, addresses it, but some of the testimony makes it muddy. The language says, shall be provided that no law shall arbitrarily and unreasonably discriminate against a person based on conviction history. I want to be clear because it will be a talking point against the amendment. We're not getting rid of background checks.
Right.
And I say that because when it comes to certain places of employment, particularly NOPD, I do not want to waive background checks on NOPD officers because we have people currently that have been pardoned by the Trump administration for assaulting police officers who are pardoned and could apply to be a police officer. The only way we're able to uncover and look at those issues is by having that ability. Now, I think that language where it says arbitrarily and unreasonably catches that because it says if what I'm applying for is not related to what I was doing, then it is arbitrary. Now, I agree you need that there with the language for the ban-the-box revisions to define what arbitrary is, to define what unreasonable is, and to give that flexibility to thread that needle. But I bring that up because you know, Bruce, that the ads that run against this will be talking about NOPD and NORD. And it's important on the front end to talk about how both this amendment and the ordinance work together and spells out and corrects that language to show that we're not creating new problems and doing it. I think it's so unfortunate to me, and your case affects me, Jared, but your case really makes me upset, Ms. Oliver, because we have people that always tout their achievements as being mayors of progressive cities, and they are savaging people like you in the public square at the same time. And it hurts my heart because when you talk about people, and Vote knows the numbers, the people in the city who are underemployed or unemployed, the whole purpose of Ban the Box, the way it was sold, was all the data you've shown, which is that we should be the people employing people and giving them the basic building blocks to get the entry-level job, get more education, and move up the ladder in the process. That's what we should be doing as a city. And to hear your story, particularly how you did everything right, and the city not only didn't reward you, they literally punished you for it, it's just, it leaves me, I'm talking, but internally it leaves me speechless. I do not know what we need to do to solve that problem, but it will be solved. I'm so sorry you had to put up with this nonsense. I'm so sorry that I did not know your story before today. That's on me.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to figure out a way to fix that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
That's right.
Can I just say one point to Mr. Morrell before you?
Yeah.
Just wanted to give you one context for the background checks. People with convictions are the only group of people that are insured to the employer. There's a federal bonding program that allows the employer to mitigate the risk of hiring somebody with a conviction. It is mitigated by saying that if the person is a risk or the person is discharged or fired for any reason, you can recoup up to $20,000 back for that loss. And you only find that in the body of someone with a conviction. The only bipartisan pass underneath the previous Trump administration was the First Step Act. That First Step Act also gives federal provisions to the employer if they hire somebody with a conviction. So not just only with the background check is accessible, but you have an insurance with the state and the federal government saying if you hire this person and something does go wrong, you can recoup that loss.
I appreciate that very technical answer, but the reason why I said it the way I did because I know Bruce and Norris know what I'm talking about, that technical answer is not going to be on a flyer. What you need to be able to show is that we have a way to put this charter in place, that we have a definition of what arbitrary is, and this is why when the negative attack ad comes out, you can say, no, we're not saying somebody who's an officer who's been repeatedly charged with police brutality but kept this post certification, because in the state of Louisiana, for those who don't know, no one's post-service certification is ever revoked. So you have officers who are literally fired for departments for police brutality who then go work for another department. The only way you catch them is because occasionally you have a DA who files charges before they resign, and in that background check, you catch it. So I'm being very intentional in my language in that I think that the real important issue is to pass the ordinance before this measure goes forward on the ballot, so you can show that the language in the ordinance captures the concerns that people will bring up about the amendment on the ballot. So there's a whole bunch of technical arguments we can make. That's not what you'll be making in front of the public. You'll be making like, no, it's not a problem, you know, we solved it. So,
Gotcha.
thank you.
Councilmember Green?
I think this is one instance where I'll say I think that our Council President J.P. Morrell touched on a lot of the things that I was going to say. That was a good presentation that I see that he was prepared for. The thing that I'll say is that I appreciate the fact that everyone is here today, the number of people who are here today. I think that in general society recognizes that those who have paid their dues to society, if you will, or to the criminal justice system deserve the opportunities to be able to be a part of society. Whatever we can do as a city council, I mean, well, it depends on the vote. I mean, so it's subject to the vote. But I think that you'll find this city council has been very supportive of making opportunities available to those who have been denied opportunities in the past. The one thing that I'll say is an if this should go on the ballot, the council has to vote, and I never make a determination that that's going to happen. I just encourage everyone to reach out to the community so that they understand. I mean, go to community meetings. I go to a lot of community meetings because there are like 25 community organizations in my district, neighborhood associations, because they need to be advised and also be prepared for whatever the response is going to be of others. I think that many times that doesn't happen, where there's not enough outreach into the community, where we go to the Desire, Florida Community Center, we have a meeting, or we know that they're having a meeting of the Ninth Ward Neighborhood Association, and we tell them what's on the ballot. It's very important for our communities to know what may be, you know, what's going to be on the ballot to be voted on. But in general, again, summarizing, I think one of the most important points is that as a society, we want to do everything that we can to integrate people who have who want to participate in society to participate in it. And I am encouraged by the number of folks that I see here today and the level of participation by some of the organizations that I have in support, that I've seen in supporting those who need a hand many times. So I just look forward to seeing what the vote of the council is, and then just recognize for everyone here, I can be redundant about one thing. It's very important to be redundant sometimes. What Councilmember Morrell mentioned is very important, that the city charter governs the city's operations. There'll still be a need to talk to the private sector should it pass. I encourage, just as I said about going to community organizations, that we go to the private sector and talk to them too, so that they understand what the benefits are, the same numbers you showed us, and the same social benefits everyone should be aware of. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'll save my comments for closing. I want to thank everyone here, but once we get through the cards, then I'll close on what I think is a remarkable presentation. Very important research that was done, and that makes it easier for us to do what our humanity should have led us to do a long time ago. First speaker is Mr. Paul Mayo. Paul Mayo. Everyone, 2 minutes, please.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr.
I'm on?
Yes, you are. Yes,
Good morning. My name is Paul Mayo. In 1991, I was convicted by non-unanimous jury. I was sentenced to life in prison. In 2022, I was given a second chance at an opportunity to be in a free society. Since then, I obtained my CDL, which I was a CDL driver before I went to prison. And in prison, I was doing the same thing, and when I came out, I plan on doing the same thing. I had a job for 18 months, And 2 days before my birthday, on August 19th of last year, I was going to work, and the manager called me and told me there's no more work. I had been laid off because they done a background check 18 months later. I was bringing home $1,800 a week after taxes. I had to accept a job that I'm bringing home $900 a week. To supplement my income, I applied to Uber, and they told me no because of my background check. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Earl Higgins.
Good morning, Council. I'm Earl Higgins, reading for Joe LeBeau. My name is Joe LeBeau, and I'm writing to share my story and ask for your help in fixing a problem that affects me and many others who've been through criminal justice system. I served 27 years, 9 months in prison, and was released on July 19, 2019. Since then, I've worked hard to turn my life around, earn certificates, and gain the skills that should help me support myself and my family. But despite my efforts, I've been turned away from housing and jobs because of my felony convictions. While I was in prison, I earned certificates in high voltage electrical work, rewiring gas and oil refineries, cooking, and I also earned a CDLA license, which includes endorsements from tankers, hazmats, and passengers. I also have a TWIC card and an OSHA card. These are important qualifications that should make me a strong candidate for many jobs, but I've been denied housing 4 times and turned down for work more than 50 times. One experience I had working at a refinery when I was responsible for building the first flame, which signals the public the plant to work and running for full potential. I did my part. The plant was live, but shortly after I was laid off, even though I qualified and had the right skills. My criminal record kept me from staying employed. A temp service that hired me promised guaranteed work with the company, but once they learned about my felony convictions, they let me go and offered me a low-paying job at the same place. This happened over and over again. It was discouraging. I'm gonna speed up. I'm gonna go to the end because I'm running out of time. I'm asking for your support in making laws that protect people like me from being shut out housing jobs because of our past.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Higgins. Donald Albernut? I'm sorry if I mispronounced it, Mr. Donald.
Good morning, Council. You did, but it's okay. I'm reading for Mr. Vital Montz. My name is Vital Montz, and I'm a former incarcerated individual who has dedicated the last 8 years of my life to rebuilding, contributing, and becoming an active member of the New Orleans community. I am writing to share my story and ask for your support in addressing the critical issue of housing discrimination against former incarcerated individuals like myself. Since my release after 25 years and a half, I have faced a significant barrier in securing stable housing in the city of New Orleans. Over the past 8 years, I have been denied rental housing at least 5 times, despite being a skilled ASE certified mechanic with great credit. I currently work as a mechanic supervisor for a local sightseeing company, making a decent living and being fully capable of paying rent. My work ethic, commitment to my community, and financial stability should make me a strong candidate for housing, but the stigma of my past continues to hinder my progress. I'm a father, grandfather, and soon-to-be husband, planning to marry next year. I would love to have a stable home for my family to thrive, yet this dream feels continually out of reach because of the discrimination I face due to my past criminal history. It is demoralizing to feel rejected time and again, especially when I know that I have changed my life for the better and am working hard to give back to my community.
I understand that there are laws protecting individuals from certain types of discrimination, but it seems that like people like me, we have paid our debt to society, trying to move forward, are often left out these protections. I ask that your consideration in introducing and supporting a city.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councilmember King before the next speaker.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank the panel for speaking, Ms. Oliver, Ms. Wall. I appreciate the testimony. I do have a previously scheduled, 11:30 meeting to attend, so I'm leaving, not out of disrespect, but I have another meeting to attend. I look forward to working with voting you all on this legislation. Thank you.
Mr. Willie Wood.
Fill out that code, but I'm here for the next meeting. So I'll just wait for the next meeting. Thank you.
Oh, it's for city planning. Okay. Okay. All right. City planning. Zoe David Lane.
Hi, I'm here speaking for Dr. Nancy Lynn Rogers, who wasn't able to come because of scheduling. Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Dr. Nancy Lynn Rogers, and I'm a board-certified neurological surgeon. I started my own practice in 1996 and was blessed to help hundreds of vulnerable babies, children, and adults with the neurological skills I learned over my 30-year career. That career came to a halt in 2012 when I was wrongfully arrested. And I'm not alone in this. Many individuals labeled by the criminal justice system are unjustly discarded and disqualified from full participation in society because of prior convictions. Our society's most precious resource is not rare materials, it's people. The criminal justice system must not prevent individuals from being able to fully engage in their communities and contribute to society. I was denied a trial for over 6 years. During these 6 years, I was denied my medical privileges, even though I was not convicted of anything. My colleagues at the hospital desperately wanted me back because I was one of the few neurosurgeons who would treat patients of all age and accepted Medicaid. The attorneys for the hospital told me that the accusations barred me from practicing neurosurgery. Several of my patients died in transport to other hospitals, while the other neurosurgeons in my community suffered from having to make more emergency calls. Ban-the-Box legislation has failed to protect people like me. I've waited for over 13 years for my day in court. In that time, I've used my medical skills to help others impacted by injustice, many of whom suffer from mental health issues as a direct result of being labeled and stigmatized by the justice system. These are good people, and it is the system that is broken. This council has the power to address these issues by supporting laws that protect individuals with prior convictions. This will allow them to pursue meaningful work opportunities and in turn to continue safety of their community.
Thank you. Nadia Mohammed.
Good morning, my name is Nadia Mohammed, and I'm reading on behalf of Troy West. My name is Troy West. I'm a man who served 29 years and 9 months in prison. I was released on June 15, 2023, and have worked hard to rebuild my life ever since. When I was incarcerated, I focused on gaining the skills that would allow me to support my family and contribute positively to my community once I was released. I earned several certifications in HVAC, hoping that my qualification will help me to secure a job, a better future for myself and my loved ones. During my time in prison, I completed a rigorous certifications program through the National Center of Construction, Education and Research, the NCCER. The program included HVCA, the Level 1, HVCA Level 2, Advanced HVCA courses, EPA Universal certifications, and HVCA Excellence.
and residential air conditioning, light commercial air conditioning, and light commercial refrigeration. Despite all my hard work and accomplishments, I have faced repeated rejections in my job search. After I completed my training and started looking for work, I was excited to help employees express interest in my qualifications. However, once they discovered my felony conviction, they ended the hiring process and told me I could not move forward with my application. It has been deeply disheartening to experience this level of discrimination, especially after everything I have done to prepare myself for reentry into society. I am talking to you today and asking for your support in making Milwaukee a more inclusive and equitable city for people like me. I hope you will approve this policy and that protect formerly incarcerated individuals.
Thank you, Ms. Mohammed. Troy Hampton.
How y'all doing? My name is Troy Hampton. I'm the Family Unification Coordinator for Daughters Behind Incarceration. This policy is really important to me. Not for me personally, because my education level helps me getting out of prison, obtain the job that I have today. So it's hard getting interviews being a convicted felon. And then some convicted felons' education level also plays a major part. So dealing with what we have to go through every day, like the brother spoke about, a lot of brothers are embarrassed. So they won't tell you what they face with. They won't tell you that they don't have jobs. So it forces them back to the street, because a lot of times, I have 6 kids. So if I couldn't get a job, just imagine what else left to do. The streets is what most of us grew up around. We grew up seeing it. It led us to prison. So in prison, you change your life. You work. You get your GED if that's the case, or you get a trade. So you come home with expectations of changing your life from the public and from everybody saying, okay, you're a changed man, so give me an opportunity now. So we come home after working in prison. I was in federal prison. I worked for 64 cents. I worked on a rec yard. I was a tutor, Oakdale, Louisiana, FCI. We was number 4 in the BOP when I was the head tutor. So to come home for me, again, with my education level, I went to LSU, I have a business degree, and with people that I know who really know Troy Hampton a person, and not Troy Hampton that people try to make me out to be. I had an opportunity, but everybody don't get that same opportunity coming home from prison. And those opportunities, it hurts. It hurts to put in the work in prison, to be a changed person, and to get out here and don't get the opportunities. I had a cousin just now, went to McDonald's. Well, a friend of mine just went to McDonald's, just came home from the BOP, right? He was supposed to have the job. When they found out he was a convicted felon, they told him, I'm sorry, you can't do it.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you. Thank you. Charles Amos.
Good morning. I'm Lean on behalf of Keanu Calloway. I am writing to humbly request your support for the Protected Class Network efforts to restore the civil liberties of all individuals returning home from incarceration. As a concerned community member for the criminologist major study at Loyola University, the president of the ISSC Impacted Solitary Survivor Council, and a directly impacted individual, I have witnessed firsthand the severe collateral consequences that individuals face upon reentry to society. Unfortunately, I am also a testament of the flaws in our justice system, having been wrongfully convicted of 2 first-degree murder counts. After returning home from prison, I have experienced the harsh realities of reentry and the numerous barriers that individuals like me face. It has become so clear to me that people returning home from incarceration are one of the most vulnerable populations in our society, and yet they are often subject to widespread stigma and hatred. As a city, we pride ourselves on our values of justice, equity, and compassion. However, the reality is that individuals returning home from incarceration are often denied their basic civil liberties, making it nearly impossible for them to rebuild their lives. This is why I am urging you to support the Protected Class Network effort to restore the rights and dignity of vulnerable population. By supporting this initiative, we will be helping to address the the systemic barriers that prevent individuals from successfully reintegrating into society. This in turn will contribute to our overall safety and well-being of our community. I believe that every individual deserves a second chance, and it is our collateral responsibility to restore to ensure that they have the support and resources they need to thrive. I look forward to the opportunity to discuss this matter further with you and explore ways to work together to create a more just and equitable society for all individuals returning home from society and for incarceration. Thank you.
Thank you. Alfred Marshall. Big Al. What's up, Al?
Good morning, Council. Council, my name is Alfred Marshall. I'm organizer with VOTE. My experience is I came on in 2012, and the projects were being dismantled at the time, and it had something in place where you couldn't go back and live in the project. You know, my children live in the project, but the law said that my girl was afraid that, you know, she could easily be put out because of what they were saying, right? So anyway, I was sneaking in and out of there. I landed a job at the High Regency. I was working over there. I was making like $16,000 a year. That wasn't good enough. So what I did, I applied for another job, you know, to get on the boat, right? Unfortunately, they had a look-back period of 2 years. If you had a conviction, I had just been home just about almost 2 years, but I was denied that job, you know, to ride the boat, right? So I would say this, you know, in regards to that, you know, being locked out like that, but thanks God for VOTE, you know, I was able to get a good paying job at this point, right? But I know right now, you know, all this work that's going on in the city, and we know it, you know, there shouldn't be no problem for people to find jobs when the city is self-contracting all the work out, and that's why we talk about the private sector. There are young men I know all the time, you know, trying to get into the workforce that can't get it because, unfortunately, you know, if the roads belongs to the city, there's a lot of work in the city that needs to be done with the roads, and it's sad that, you know, we got young men standing on the corner because the city has sub all the work out to subcontractors who are not hiring our people. So that's a big issue that we have right now. I would say, you know, let's get some of the work back, you know, so we can hire our people that's in the city. You know, there's no problem. I mean, there's a lot of people that need jobs, and they're here. And, you know, you say, you know, as a civil service people, you know, you're not hiring them for as they got a conviction. A lot of them have a conviction. If y'all would get some of the contracts and give it out to some of the citizens in the city, we'll be all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred. We've just been reminded that the council rules don't allow for someone to speak on someone's behalf. So if you're going to speak, just say it on your own behalf. All right? Mr. Lewis Embo? Mr. Lewis? And Junior, I'm sorry, I left that out.
Louis Ambo Jr., 2927 Powell Hatton Street. I'm a native son of New Orleans. I'm a former Marine. I'm a former incarcerated individual. Currently unemployed. Been out of prison since 2010. That says something. I came to speak just to say, I'm a Stroud NOLA graduate. I've done all kind of jobs. As a military person, the most important thing that you can know, if you want someone to succeed, you have to support them correctly.
Thank you. Sierra Green?
Hello, my name is Sierra Green. I'm a local business owner here in New Orleans who is concerned about the discrimination happening in our community. It's a true privilege to be standing in front of you today. A privilege because I can. You see, I'm not here for myself, but for the invisible people who aren't in this room. The people who can't afford to stand here, but I can. The people who can't take off work, but I can. The people who are too embarrassed to tell their stories, but I'm not. The people whose convictions have branded them, whose dignity has been stripped from them, even after they've served their time. My brother has been wrongfully incarcerated in Georgia for over 10 years. Because of him, a lot of the work I've done to support the wrongfully incarcerated and the formerly incarcerated has been centered in Georgia, but I live here in New Orleans. I work here, I pay my taxes here, and this is my city, so I've carried that work home with me because a problem exists here too. And that's how I know these protections work. I've seen it with my own eyes in Atlanta after they passed this exact ordinance we're speaking about today. I've studied the impact. I've seen the people whose lives were transformed because people in power said enough is enough. Councilman Thomas, if I may, you've lived through a time where you weren't protected under the law for the color of your skin. Now you are. But today, as a black man who was once incarcerated, you are still not protected from discrimination in housing or in unemployment. But you, as this council, you and this council can change that here, right now. And let's be honest, there was a time every person sitting on this committee might not have been protected by race, by gender, by religion. You are only sitting in power today because someone before you expanded the circle of protection. Now it's your turn. This amendment is just not about a fairness. It's about giving our people, our neighbors, a real second chance. It's about ending the sentence at the prison gate, not extending it to every job interview, every housing application, and every no that gets thrown at someone who's already paid the price. Because justice doesn't end when time is served.
Very well said. Thank you. Ezekiel Wells.
Greetings, Council. Today I stand here because I am one of the co-founders of a group called Rise Collective. And that collective group is here to actually support those in the community. Way too often when I'm doing the reentry process, that process is not done successfully because discrimination does not allow me to do so. There's folks that have already applied for the TWIC and they've been denied because of their background. I have my son that was working at the airport. He does have a marijuana felony, and he was also fired because of that charge. I don't understand how those jobs have a nerve to deny anyone to do jobs that nobody else actually wants, that cause physical damage to the body often. People serve long terms of incarceration and cannot find stable housing. There aren't enough reentry programs or landlords that will accept the background. And so many people are moving around, what makes them unstable and more likely to commit petty crimes. How can we expect people to come home and thrive and be productive when there are no protections to allow them to reinvent themselves? In summary, reentry is necessary, discrimination is not, because it will not provide the essential support and resources that individual needs. We just asking for the council to support us so my job could be a little easier and our people will be successful as possible. Thank you, council.
Thank you. Charles Carter. Mr. Carter isn't here. Eugene Dean. Gene. Where's Gene at? I don't...
Good morning, Council. My name is Eugene Dean. I'm former incarcerated. I've been free for 26 years going on. When I first got out, I was discriminated against. I applied for a managerial job, went through the training for 2 days. The third day, the person who was over the training came out and said, if you've been convicted, you can leave now. So that was 2 days. That was my first encounter. Second time, I applied for housing. Couldn't get no housing. I had to get my aunt to co-sign for me to get housing. Thirdly, I worked for a program called Circle Coverage Mentoring that Mr. Thomas introduced me to, and I was working in the school system through that program. I had been working like 3 years. Then they decided to hire me directly for the school. I went to the school, I worked for 2 days. Came back, the principal told me, because of your conviction, we got to let you go. So this thing is really needed. You know, all of us affected about this criminal justice system, especially about impacted people who trying to move on with their lives. So I really encourage you guys to really take this serious and, you know, dig deep and work with us in whatever language that we might need to change to make this happen. Let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. Mr. Norris Henderson.
Good evening. I've been working on this issue for like 22 years. From trying to change Title 35 on the state level to being one of the guys who have led this national campaign to ban the box that took us all the way to the White House to meet with Valerie Jarrett and Roy Austin. And when I looked at this panel, I reflected on what was unique about that conversation with them as opposed to this conversation today. All about the 6 people here who work for organizations that are run by formerly incarcerated people. That's the difference. This ain't about just discrimination. This is about, are we a part or do we belong? That's what it boils down to. Are we a part of this community or do we belong in this community? Because just like Mr. Hankton said, the street don't require a resume. The street don't require a resume. And people got cred. They got street cred. But they choose to want to do something else. And that something else is just gainful employment, affordable housing, the things that people need to be successful. You know, I don't have the same, 50 years ago I went to prison. I've been home 22 years. I didn't have the same challenge. I had a job waiting on me for 10 years, waiting on me to get out in a law firm. And I went straight to that job. I didn't have a problem with housing. I had a house. But I met a friend of mine one day who was homeless, and I didn't know what that looked like. And that's been the fuel that's driving me for the last 22 years. We have to change this system. And it starts here today and now. And in the box, we thought would solve the problem, but it didn't solve it nor resolve it. And I agree with JP, Councilman Morrell, that the language has to be meticulous. I agree with Councilman Green. Yeah, we have to go tell our story to our neighbors. But surprisingly enough, I would say 75%.
Absolutely. And the last, we just got this card from Adam Seba. And you can correct me on the last name if you'd like, Mr. Adam.
Good morning, Council. It's Adam Septi. I just wanted to stand and add my voice to this course in support of this. I am an attorney in town. I do some criminal work, but mostly do civil litigation. I'm a graduate of Tulane Law School. I've been here for 15 years. This is my adopted home. I just want to say it seems to me supremely unfair to allow discrimination against people that have paid their debt to society, and they should have the same access to jobs and housing as anyone else, and so I'm here in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any online comments?
Yes, we have 2 online comments.
You want to wait for me?
First one is from Alana Prieto. She says, please put the protected class issue on the ballot for voters this October. I'm a family member of a formerly incarcerated person. When my son's father came home from incarceration, he had friends and family who could not give him a place to live and was hired immediately. Although he's a lawyer, he has been a construction project manager for the past 11 years. Not everyone has this kind of support of the kinds of resources we had to wrap around him. He feels an incredible amount of shame, and I often wonder what would have happened to him if he had to endure the constant rejection that would have followed him at each turn. Even though he has a job and a place to live, he still experiences the shame and judgment from others that comes with the conviction. I hope this committee can truly understand the needs for there to be protections created for those in our community who have a conviction history. Based on the numbers, a lot of our neighbors and loved ones across New Orleans are affected. I also have a son with special needs who is protected under the law because he is disabled. He would not be where he is if he was not part of a protected class. He still has to compete in the workforce with people who are fully abled, so the protection is no handout. We know how important these protections are for him, and it should be the same for people with convictions. The only way we can begin to beat back the narrative that people with convictions are dangerous and not worth safe, livable housing, jobs that allow them to prosper and just survive, and educational opportunities is by creating pathways for success. It's this council's job to protect the citizens of New Orleans, and so I respectfully ask that you send this to the full council and then to the voters. And the other comment is from Nancy Lynn Rogers, MD. There's great harm being done with pervasive discrimination against talented individuals who have a lot to contribute merely because of a criminal history. I was denied hospital privileges merely because of a criminal charge. Individuals need to feel that they are part of their community. There are serious mental health consequences when individuals are perpetually ostracized. That's it for your comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Morrell and Councilmember Green for closing comments. And then I'll close, and I'll let the last word be from the heroes at the table. Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on, Mr. Cook.
Just gotta fill out a card, Mr.
Yeah, just fill out a card after you talk. Everybody, Mr. Cook.
Good morning.
Yeah, I called Mr. Carter's name, he wasn't here. No, Mr. Carter, you can, yeah. As soon as Mr. Cook speaks, then you can come. I have your card already. But when you finish, just put your name on the card, Mr. Cook.
Okay. I'll try my best not to go over 3 minutes.
It's 2 minutes.
First of all, good morning. How you doing? This is a conversation that I'm kind of shameful that we're having it in this Christian nation. Where is the forgiveness? A person does wrong, if a child does wrong, does his mother and father prosecute him over and over and punish him for that same crime forever? I mean, where is the forgiveness? All of these men that came up, I know most of these men, and I saw a change in these men take place when they came into prison. A change that had to take place because the change didn't take place from birth until 5 years old or 6 years old when nobody was raising them. Okay, there has got to be forgiveness, and this is the process we go about it, giving people jobs. How can we have rehabilitation when someone gets out, they can't find a job? Where's rehabilitation then? What was that for? Am I right or wrong? Are we wasting money in rehabilitation? When a person does all that time, it takes them out of the cycle of being out here. If they weren't raised right, it gives them another opportunity to examine their mind, and if there's rehabilitation going on, there's people there to help them out. And when that person gets out, that's a better person that could probably relapse into a worse person if he's rejected all the time for jobs that he really needs. And I don't want to go too long. I'll just end it with this. Where's the forgiveness?
Good, thank you. Mr. Carter.
Mr. Carter, before you go, I need to leave really quickly, so I'll make 2 quick points before you go. Just real quick, I know that there was a mention of non-unanimous juries back there. I want to remind people that even though we repealed non-unanimous juries, there were a multitude of people who were convicted before that repeal, and for many of them, they had to plea out to get out of jail. So you had people that were convicted under an unconstitutional non-unanimous jury who under any other state in the United States would never have been convicted, but were forced with the reality that unless they pled out for the DAs that would let them plea out, they could not leave. And that story from that CDL job, I see you back there still, sir, is really poignant because even when the state does wrong and admits it, you still get punished. The other thing I want to mention, because a mutual friend, Ned Garvey, brought it to my attention, there is a Senate Bill 227 by Heather Cloud, which literally is seeking to revoke unemployment for people purely based on the fact they were formerly incarcerated and that they are under probation. So it is very important for cities like New Orleans to step up and provide employment opportunities, because even when you're gainfully employed, you have people at the state level that are trying to find new ways to punish you. So I just want to make those 2 quick points. I apologize for leaving early with Mr. Carter, but I got a meeting I can't get out of. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carter, and then the last call, at some point we have to get out of here for the city planning hearing. After Mr. Carter, Miss Amelia Terrence or Herrings? Miss Amelia? You're right after Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter.
Good morning. In 1979, I was convicted on a charge, and I stayed in prison 43 years. During the time I was in prison, I did everything that I could to prepare myself for society without even knowing if I was going to get out. I completed several life-changing skills programs. Carpentry was one of them, small injury repair, ACNR. I came home in 2022, I was released after doing 43 years. In 2023, I applied for housing. I was unemployed, and I'm a person that's suffering with glaucoma. And my condition is so bad now that my sight does not raise to the level that allows me to be employed. So my income comes from a federal government check. Disability, that's what I receive. All the places in which I have applied for housing have denied me based on me being a formerly incarcerated person. What makes it even worse is because I can't work to make enough money for housing for people that won't discriminate against me. The check that I receive every month does not cover but a certain amount. You don't go so far. So when you take that and you share that what you have to do with other people, and then you try to pay rent off of that, there's nothing left for that. So I can't be employed because
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. Miss Amelia.
Just one.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to talk this morning. I just want to come before you and say this simple thing. When I think about protected class, I think about me being a nurse and having been arrested after a mental health situation. That was 9 years ago. I still suffer from the consequences of that, and I did not even receive a conviction. See, it's like a stigma, it's like a scarlet letter that you wear with you, and it never goes away. We have suffered harms, biases, discrimination, and what protected class is doing is just asking you to make it a level playing field, because we constantly have to deal with collateral consequences of our one mistake of incarceration. So please, today, I'm urging you, please, pass this protected class because it's much needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Councilmember Green.
Mr. Councilman, just because we have a number of people here and you can help get the word out, and I know that there's discrimination out there, but I do want to encourage anyone to recognize that the city also has an agency called Job One, and I've helped a couple of people who were formerly incarcerated, one person who was incarcerated for over 35 years, and he's gotten employed. And if you have an issue and you contact Job One and can't get the support that you need, if you feel you're being discriminated against, I know that this doesn't solve all problems, but please feel free to call my office. That's all I'm saying. I know that there could be problems even there, but I just want to let you know for a fact that I have helped people who are formerly incarcerated to get jobs. And the counselors at Job One, and you can walk in there, it's on Aretha Castle Haley, are very, very open to talking to you. That's all. But also, I just want to, again, thank everyone for coming out today, thank our presenters today, and, recognize that if there's anything that I can do to, support the efforts to make it more possible for those who have, pay their dues to society, to become incorporated into society, let me know. I'll also tell you that there are programs, for example, at SUNO, the Small Business Development and Management Institute, that work with those who are entrepreneurs. I have a property management firm, and I employ, even though it's their companies, I contract with persons who own companies or who are formerly incarcerated. So if there's anything that I can do to help, just let me know.
The first thing I want to do is thank all of the participants, my colleagues, and I want to thank the heroes sitting at the table. So much to say. I'll try to be concise with my comments and not belabor them. But when you talk about reform, if you remember the history of it, I think it was David Ruiz in Texas and Brother Muhammad in Leavenworth in the 70s who fought for reform. George Jackson and his brother in California in Black August who fought for reform. So when I look at the men and women at the table, and reform always comes from the people who didn't get an opportunity for reform or opportunity to service them. And so, Mr. Marshall, for you, Mr. Oliver, Jared, Patrick, and Bruce, this is kind of the way the world has always worked. You blaze a trail for salvation, not because it benefited you, but because it benefited others. Democracy, justice, and humanity shouldn't be the exception. It should be the rule. When you say that people have paid their debt to society, what folk don't understand, if you haven't grown up like some of us or lived in a house or been through the system, you don't understand how, even with all these reforms, how the system has worked against you. Now, as we know, what happened with per se motions in the Fourth Circuit, where even when folk worked on the inside to gather evidence that could exonerate them or free them, that the injustice there, where they wouldn't hear those motions, and the gentleman actually in his note when he committed suicide, that burden of not granting those motions weighed on him in his life because it affected freedom, people's freedom, and he worked within the system. When you talk about ban the box, yeah, you banned the box, but you left the shackles. When you talk about the many formerly incarcerated people who build the ramp, but you can't use the ramp. And then you're really trying to, Bruce, kind of help save us against ourselves, right? At some point, when you're talking about mandatory minimums, in this system, 1 in 3 African-American men, 1 in 7 black women now, and many poor whites or whites who are affluent, who didn't have the system of the justice, that the number was growing into the millions, where people were being pushed outside of their citizenship. And we were approaching, Norris, a system where at some point there were so many people that you were risking taxation without representation, 17th century France, where the people who were pushed outside of the opportunity tore down the walls and demanded that if you're going to take my taxes, right, if you're going to tax my crops, if you're going to weigh on my humanity, then I'm going to fight to get that back. So in many ways, this opportunity is protecting us because the system is pushing so many people out. But then it makes economic sense. In one study, we're costing ourselves this nation, $240 billion just with misdemeanors. $77 billion just with formerly incarcerated people. And another $55 billion just in other categories. So why would we cost ourselves all those billions of dollars and not protect the class of people who could help this economy? I don't understand why this hasn't been done. And I don't understand why people don't get it. And the people at the table and the folk who are formerly incarcerated, y'all not just trying to save yourselves, you're trying to save this democracy. You're trying to save our society. So I'm so proud of the folk who are here today. And when I talk about the exception, you know, it's like people saying, Oh, you speak well. Oh, I know a lot of people. Oh, man, for this kind of person, wow, you're really smart. Oh, you grew up in the lower ninth ward. Oh, wow. See, you made it. But there's a whole lot of other people who didn't. So we're going to use the exception or the exceptional people here as a rule. Democracy by subtraction will not stand. This country won't survive itself unless we start to give opportunity to people who've paid their debt to society, they've served their time, and they contribute, but they can contribute in a much bigger way if we protect them like we protected my handicapped sister, like we protected other classes of people because of their affliction or their disability. But let me say this, there's no disability to being formerly incarcerated. There's only ability. The ability to survive in spite of.
Right.
The ability to thrive in spite of. And for folk who may not know, some of the most successful businesses that operate in this city and in this region are people that I know who are formerly incarcerated people. They operate million-dollar businesses, not because they wanted to. In many cases, they were forced to. But they should not be the exception. And I won't say his name, but one of the richest people in the state is an ex-offender. He was protected because of his skin color and because of his class. So why shouldn't we protect everybody else?
Right.
This is a human right. This is a human right. And if you don't want to do this, if you're one of those people who don't understand the level of humanity, you may not want to, but we need to. Because in many cases, God gives us the only people who can protect us from ourselves, and many of them spoke today. Closing comments, Mr. Marshall.
Oh, man. I appreciate you all, Councilman Albert Thomas. Mr. Eugene Green, I really appreciate your comments. To Councilman Morrell, Mr. King, I really appreciate you all. I woke up in this room today not knowing what the mood was going to be. I told my colleague I'm going to go early so I can feel the spirit of the chambers. Today, I feel like the invisible people have been heard. I'm thinking about Ralph Ellison, the Invisible Man. The invisible people in our society, they were heard today. Councilman Green, your comments confirm that you heard our voice. You see us. G.P. Morrell's comments confirm that you heard our voice and you see us. And when you look behind me, you see many people in the room. But there are so many invisible women and so many invisible men who are living on the outskirts of our society who are not in this room today. And I'm here for them. This is a real crisis we're dealing with. When I signed up for vote, the mission of vote is imprinted in my heart. I know I'm going to go to my grave fighting for formerly and currently incarcerated people, because I am one of them. Everybody I talk to every day are formerly incarcerated. And my story is just a little bit better than because I have a skill set that makes me a good hire at vote. But my brothers and sisters, I love them just the same, and I want to see them thrive and strive in this community as well. My son is dead. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Marshall, your son may be deceased, but your action and your purpose allow others to live. I have absolutely. I have two ex-offenders who work for me. This ain't just about talking about it. One who soon will be getting his law degree back. The other one was a young man who, when everybody was celebrating our juvenile justice facility winning the Aspen Challenge against all those private schools, the system was ready to throw him away. Well, they threw him to me. He's brilliant. So how could you lead an educational challenge and then society not only not see you, but not want to give you an opportunity. You all have provided opportunity. You all have provided hope. And the most humane thing we can do is make sure in our speech, whatever amendments, whatever language needs to be cleaned up, that we can help society be saved from itself. God bless y'all. Thank y'all.
Good afternoon. I would like to call the Monday, April 7th Board of Zoning Adjustments meeting to order. We'll begin with roll call. Candace Forrest is absent. Todd James.
Present.
Tamara Eggins. Present. Jose Alvarez is absent. Ramiro Diaz.
Present.
Alfonso Gonzalez.
Present.
And Jason Richards is absent. At this time, would the board make a motion to adopt the minutes from the March 10th meeting?
So moved. Oh, you're one?
We have a second her motion. All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes from last month's meeting. Tamara's mover, second was Gonzalez.
Please note that the board will recess at approximately 1 p.m. if the meeting has not already been adjourned, and will reconvene at approximately 1:30 unless the board makes a motion to skip the
All right, yeah, we have
recess. As a reminder to applicants, action that the board takes today will be released in the form of a disposition notice by April 17th and sent via mail and email to the applicant, as well as posted on the One Stop app for other interested parties. Requests that the board votes to approve must show compliance with any noted provisos before the case is finalized and granted final approval. One item on today's agenda has been deemed improper. Item number 11, BZA 026-25 for the property at 620 Louisa Street. In addition, one item on today's agenda has been withdrawn. Item number 1, BZA docket 008-25 for the property at 5007 South Tonti Street. We will now begin with unfinished business for variances. Will the vice chair please read the hearing rules for variances?
Thank you, and I know that everybody's been waiting in chambers patiently, so we're going to try to be as efficient as possible to get through the agenda today and make sure we cover what's before us. Going over rules and procedures for the public hearing on variance requests, the following procedures shall be observed during the hearing. Each speaker shall give their name and address prior to speaking on the proposal. The applicant or representative will speak first. The presentation shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes for each applicant or representative speaker. But in no event shall the cumulative presentation total by applicants or their representatives exceed 10 minutes. Proponents or persons in favor of proposal will speak next and be allowed 2 minutes per speaker. Opponents or persons in opposition to the proposal will speak next and be allowed 2 minutes per speaker as well. The applicant or representative will be allowed to rebut. That rebuttal shall be limited to a cumulative maximum of 3 minutes. Additional information. For any exceptional case, the time limitations may be extended by the presiding officer with approval of the board. As the board deems necessary, the case may be acted upon at this meeting or deferred for additional information or review. If the case is deferred, it will be acted upon at a subsequent meeting as provided by law. All proper parliamentary procedures shall be followed, including recognition of speakers, relevance of argument, and absolute prohibition of applause or demonstration. Standards of review. The Board of Zoning Adjustments shall not authorize a variance from requirements of the comprehensive zoning ordinance unless it finds, based on the evidence presented to it, that each case has satisfied the 9 criteria listed in Article 4, Section 4.6.f of the comprehensive zoning ordinance.
Item number 1, BZA docket 008-25 for the property at 5007 South Tonti Street was withdrawn. Item 2, docket number BZA 009-25. BZA 009-25 is a request for variances from the provisions of Article 12, Section 12.3.8.1 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to permit the creation of lots with insufficient lot area. The current development of the site includes a 2-family development on Lot 6A with an adjacent vacant lot comprising of Lot 7. The current lot configuration shows that a portion of an egress from the structure on Lot 6A is located on Lot 7. At its February meeting, the board deferred this matter 60 days to allow for the applicant to update the survey to create a new configuration with new access to existing duplex based off of the existing layout, reinstating the center cut line with documentation of easement to the neighboring property line to increase the potential square footage of proposed Lot 7A. The applicant has provided the updated survey as of Friday, April 4th. However, staff has not had sufficient time to review the resubmission. Therefore, staff recommends deferral of BZA docket 009-25.
All right, thank you, Cameron. Is a representative present for BZA docket number 009-25? Hello, Alex. Oh, hold on 1 second.
Testing, there we go. Alex Moedinger with J. Moedinger Architect, representing the client. Yeah, we've provided the revised survey per our discussion from February. If you have any questions, I have additional copies here if you don't have it in hand. But we had Krebs reestablish the historic lot line and then place a 3-foot servitude for the stair, which would mirror a 3-foot setback for a residential development of a single-family home on the adjacent lot.
That concludes your comments?
I'm sorry?
Does that conclude your comments?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. Anyone else here to speak in support of BZA docket number 009-25?
Good afternoon, my name is Brandon Webb, and I'm the owner. I just kind of piggyback off of what Alex said, just trying to subdivide it to the original property line to possibly build a single-family home in the future. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Only seeing those 2 speaker cards. Is anyone else here to speak? Anyone else here to speak in support of this request? Seeing none, is anyone here to speak in opposition? Okay, thank you. Noting that, if there's any questions from the board? Yeah, and I know that you have requested deferral.
Yes, like a 30-day deferral should be sufficient for us to review.
Yeah, and that was going to be my question to Alex or to the owner. Are you okay with the deferral that the staff is requesting in order to review the supplemental materials?
I have not discussed it with my client, as we just learned a moment ago that was the suggestion. I would say off the cuff that since we had a denial recommendation before, I'm not expecting much of a change, or if there is a change and it's beneficial, that's fine, but I'd like to discuss with my client for a moment, but I think my only concern is that we get a denial today and he has to wait a year to apply again, so if he decides to build in that year, he would have to delay building until that point in time, so.
But if I understand correctly from staff, they're pushing for the deferral, they're asking the deferral so they could have time to review what you have, which would not move for denial today.
Right. Let me just...
Yeah. But it's not a report.
Well, I was just, because we're chatting up here, I feel a little bit of disadvantage because I don't remember exactly what we discussed at the last one. I know there was some kind of going back and forth about and I just want to make sure that we are making decisions based on something that's not totally clear.
Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is if they submitted new material that staff hasn't had the proper time to review, I believe in the applicant's best interest to let them review it because that denial recommendation may change. We don't know.
We agree.
Okay.
We'll wait. Defer to next month.
So, Chair, for motions in order.
If there's no further questions or motion, anyone have a motion?
Yeah. In regards to BZA docket 009-25, I move for a 30-day deferral per the recommendation of staff and with the acceptance of the applicant.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor related to BZA docket number 009-25 for a 30-day deferral at the request of staff and agreed to and confirmed by the applicant. Please vote your machines. We have 3, we're missing 1.
All right, there it is. Somebody's toggled and not voting.
It's showing 4 on screen, so that motion is passed.
We will now begin with new business for variances. Item 3, docket number BZA 019-25.
The next item is BZA 01925 for a property located at 8313 Panola Street. The request is for a variance for provisions of Article 18, Section 18.30.b.4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to permit the renovation of a single-family dwelling in a university area off-street parking overlay district with more than 2 full and 1/2 total number of bathrooms. In accordance with Article 18, Section 18.30.d.4, the maximum number of permitted bathrooms in the university area off-street parking overlay is 2.5. The applicant is proposing to permit a single-family dwelling with 4 bathrooms. Staff analyzed new construction and renovation permits citywide and found 3 permits pertaining to the subject matter. All permits were issued after the overlay district's bathroom regulation went into effect, and no permits triggered a need for a waiver of additional bathrooms. The applicant's proposal for 4 bathrooms is also not related to the land or structure involved having a special circumstance, nor are there any special conditions preventing the applicant from compliance. Based on this report, the staff believes that the requested variances of Article 18, Section 18.30.b.4, University Area Off-Street Parking Overlay District bathrooms fails to meet criteria 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7 of the standards of variances for Article 4, Section 4.6 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, and that there are no special conditions that are peculiar to the land or structure. Literal interpretation of the ordinance will not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district. The variance will confer on the applicant's special privilege. Strict adherence will not result in demonstrable hardship, and the request is primarily for the convenience and profit of the owner or the interested party. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the requested variance.
Okay. Thank you. So moving on to item number 3, BZA docket number 019-25. Is the applicant present?
Yes, Nicole Weber.
Name and address for the record.
Sure. Nicole Weber, 2131 Bienville Street.
Okay, proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So I laid out on page 10 of the report our responses to the 9 criteria. I just wanted to point out some things now that we have the staff's recommendation. The homes that would be outside the overlay district that are also zoned HURD2 would be permitted to have to exceed 2.5 bathrooms, as well as others that have purchased their homes and lived in their homes would have the benefit of an exception due to homestead exemption. In this example, the homeowner had purchased without any disclosure at the sale that this overlay district was in place and purchased it for the sole purpose of renovating it for his growing family. And in doing so, and the renovation plans came across this overlay district, which was unbeknownst to him and his family, so therefore that's why we're filing for the exception. Had the house been in condition and he had purchased it and lived in it, then we wouldn't be here today. So that clearly is a hardship, that there wasn't an ability to get a homestead exemption. Also, I'd like to point out that, I've laid out the 9 criteria. I don't want to go belabor that point, but I'd like to point out that the examples that were provided of properties that were converted or renovated, those were all conversions from single-family homes to 2-family homes. So if you do the ratio of bedrooms to bathrooms, it would equal to similarly what we are asking for today. This is a 5-bedroom renovation with a 4-bath request, so the 1.5 bathroom waiver would be permitted if it were a 2-family, but obviously for his home, he's not asking for a 2-family. I'd also like to point out that 3 other applicants had come before the Board of Zoning Adjustments. I believe one had kind of got in through the IZD. I had other clients that we were approved through the IZD. So, there is a precedent being set for the overlay district waivers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in support of this request?
Council Adam Whitley, Septi homeowner, currently at 1411 Kentucky Street in New Orleans. I would first say that I am fully in support of the intention of this regulation, any regulation of short-term rentals or of regulating the doubles to dorms. I understand the intention, and I'm in full support of the intention of those regulations. I think this was an unintended consequence of those regulations. I intend to live in this home as a family. I have 2 children. I hope to have more. I bought the house for that purpose. And then when I applied for my homestead exemption, they said, you don't actually live in the house yet, so that is improper. So I think that does seem like a hardship, an unintended consequence and a hardship that I've kind of entered into. I bought the home. It seems like I could move into it, claim the homestead exemption, then move out and do this renovation, but that seems like an undue hardship, and I would hope y'all could grant the variance.
Anyone else here to speak in support of this request? Seeing none, is anyone here to speak in opposition to BZA docket number 019-25? Also seeing none, any questions from the board? Question to legal or to staff. Understanding the nature of the homestead exemption status on this, when traditionally can someone get their homestead exemption for the property as if they were doing a renovation? Is that post certificate of occupancy or?
I believe it is post certificate of occupancy.
Right, so it's not, and the reason why I'm asking that is if a proviso was established to say a homestead exemption needed to be obtained, you can't do that because it's post C of O.
Yes, in that regard. But also by that point, it seems like the variance would be moot anyway.
And just to confirm, the only reason that he can move forward at this time is because of the overlay district that the property falls within. Yeah. Let's say it out loud.
That is correct.
Yeah, just to explain my reason when I make a motion. Well, yeah, but the homestead exemption was the route, right? And so, I mean, just to play devil's advocate, not saying that this is the case, I'm making this because we set precedent sometimes up here. If a different person came before us and said the same case and then decides to change it later and rents it out to a bunch of students, this just kind of illuminates the catch-22 of this IZD, or whatever it's called now, this overlay.
Overlay. Yeah, overlay district. Any other questions from the board? All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
In regards to docket 1925, I move to approve the request citing the letter and the discussion here today. Citing that the 9 criteria have been met. I think one proviso.
And just to clarify, no, in the report, they did have reference of a proviso. Are you accepting that?
Yes, with the noted proviso. Thank you. Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor for BZA docket number 019-24 to grant the requested waiver of Article 18, Section 18.30.B.4 for the University Area Off-Street Parking Overlay District requirement for bathrooms. And based on the information that's provided by the applicant, they've moved for approval with the 9 criteria have been met, and acknowledgement of the one proviso is noted in the staff report. Vote your machines. And that motion is passed. Next item.
Item 4, docket number BZA 020-25.
The next item is BZA docket 020-25 concerning 2 existing principal structures located at 4301 Rain Street in an SRD 2-family residential zoning district. This request is for the variances, or for variances from the provisions of Article 11, Section 11.3.8.1, Table 11-2A of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to permit the creation of 2 lots. The first with insufficient lot area, lot depth, rear yard setback, and off-street parking. The second with insufficient lot area, width, depth, rear yard setback, and front yard setback. No new construction is proposed, rather the applicant seeks to locate each principal structure on its own lot of record. Per Article 21.4.a, Table 21-2, SRD zoning districts do not permit more than one principal building per lot, thus rendering the existing singular lot of record in its current configuration a nonconformity. Staff believes the request does satisfy the 9 criteria as they pertain to the requested variance. Therefore, the staff recommends approval of the requested variance, subject to one proviso.
Thank you. Is the applicant present for BZA docket number 020-25?
Yes, sir.
Provide your name and address for the record.
Melvin DiMaggio, 43.
Bring the mic down to you so we just make sure we hear you clearly. Thank you.
Melvin DiMaggio, 4301 Dr. Ramos.
Okay. Proceed with your comments.
When I purchased the property, I purchased it pretty much as is, and when I went to get building permits, they said they had to be subdivided. You can't have 2 building structures, 2 living structures on one. But it's been like that since the 20s.
Okay. All right. Any other comments?
No, sir.
Okay. Anyone else here to speak in support of this request?
Julia Pierce, 4301 Rainez. We did purchase the property a few years ago, and since then have kind of run into some roadblocks with trying to, of course, get permits and stuff for everything. And we are pretty uninformed about this whole process, so we did that not knowing that this is what we would run into, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, that concludes your comments?
Yes. Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in support of BZA docket number 020-25? Seeing none, is anyone here to speak in opposition? Questions from the board, and just real quick to you guys, have you had a chance to review the report, understand what it's set up in a proviso that's required for you guys, even though it's noting that it's recommended for approval?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions? It's the pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chair, if motion's in order.
Proceed.
In regards to BZA docket 020-25, I move for approval of the requested waivers, accepting the staff's recommendation, noting that all 9 criteria have been met, and subject to the one noted proviso.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for BZA docket number 020-25. Granting the requested waivers for proposed lot 1A, under Article 13, Section 13.3.A.1, Table 13-2 for lot area and lot depth and rear yard setback. In Article 22, Section 22.4.A, Table 22-1 for off-street vehicle parking. For request, and a second requested waiver for proposed lot 1B for Article 13, Section 13.3.A.1, Table 13-2 for lot area, lot width, lot depth, and front yard setback. Accepting the staff's recommendation to note the approval, assuming that the 9 criteria have been met with the one noted proviso. Please vote your machines.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
will you please clarify who seconded that motion?
The second was Commissioner Egan.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item 5, docket number BZA 021-25.
At its March 25th, 2025 meeting, the City Planning Commission approved subdivision dockets SD 1725, which was a proposal to reconfigure the subject lot such that each of the 2 attached dwelling units would occupy its own lot of record. The CPC approval is subject to 2 provisos, one of which is to obtain BZA waivers for several dimensional and other deficiencies represented by the subdivision proposal. BZA docket 2125 is the applicant's request for those needed variances. Subject property is located in the Irish Channel neighborhood in the HURD2 historic two-family residential district. It's developed with a legal non-conforming two-unit dwelling that is currently under a condominium regime wherein the two units are owned by two different parties. The owners of the respective dwelling units wish to abolish the condominium regime, an action which requires each unit to occupy its own separate lot of record. The existing lot from which the two proposed lots are to be created is itself a legal nonconformity, so the proposed lots will also feature those same deficiencies, which include insufficient lot area, insufficient lot depth, insufficient rear setback, and insufficient permeable open space. The proposed subdivision will not alter the current or future use of the property as it is currently developed, and there are no plans to alter either of the dwellings. Accordingly, granting the requested waivers will not have any effect whatsoever on neighboring properties. Therefore, the staff recommends approval of BZA 2125, subject to the proviso contained in the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present for BZA docket number 021-25?
Yes, sir.
Proceed.
Stephen Kaplan, right on 2nd Street, New Orleans. I'm also the president of this huge condominium association, which has no shared areas. My wife and I purchased this 5 years ago because our first grandchild was born here, and now we have two, and we're both retired, and this is where we want to spend time with our grandchildren, and my daughter, I guess, also. But yes, we could never figure out why this was a condominium association, and in particular, the liability insurance has gone from $6,000 to $15,000 just because it's a condominium. When we become two separate townhouses, we eliminate that extra cost, and we only have our own homeowners association, homeowners policy. So we're hoping there's nothing that we're going to change. We just put a brand new roof on both sides. And the other side, 103, has a brand new owner who's here also today to speak, I hope, in support. Any questions?
Well, let us get through public comment. If we have any questions, we'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in support on this request?
Hi, Sarah Borman, 903 2nd Street. I just bought the home about a month ago, and as Steve said, I don't really see a reason to have a homeowners association or have this be a condo when we can just have townhomes and therefore lower our insurance. So I would urge you to have us pay a lower insurance bill. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in support of this request? Anyone here to speak in opposition to BZA docket number 021-25? Okay, seeing none. Just a quick note, appreciate the second applicant's comments. Just one thing to make sure that you're aware of, for the sake of zoning board applications, we don't want to use financial benefit as a justification for those requests. So do understand your concern, but just want to make sure that's not a justification for us to vote on that item. Any questions from the board?
Okay. Do you want to take?
You got a question?
It's more of a life safety and permits question.
I know where you're going.
What the fire separation, and if that went into any of the discussion of the application.
I think the applicant, if you have any clarification on it, I know you mentioned that the roof had been redone, and I think Commissioner Diaz had a question.
Yes, there's a certified firewall that goes 4 feet up.
Yeah, up on the roof. Right.
So it's two separate.
I'm assuming when it was built to, it didn't really, the code, yeah, okay. There was a property line there, either way. So,
Thank you. All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
The motion's in order.
Proceed.
In regards to docket BZA 2125, I move to approve the request for the staff report. Discussion here. With the proviso, yeah, the noted provisos.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Diaz, a second by Commissioner Gonzalez for BZA docket number 021-25, accepting the staff's recommendation for the requested waivers. Wait, sorry. What you're saying?
I said there's one proviso.
One proviso, correct, okay. For the requested waivers for proposed lot A-1 for Article 11, Section 11.3.8.1, for Table 11, 2-A, for the rear yard setback, permeable open space, lot area, lot depth, and lot width. And the requested waiver for proposed lot A2 under Article 11, Section 11.3.8.1, Table 11-2A for rear yard setback, permeable open space, lot area, and lot depth. Understanding that the 9 criteria have been met, and move for approval with the one noted proviso. Please vote your screens. And that motion has passed. Next item.
Item 6, docket number BZA 022-25.
The next item is BZA docket 022-25 for property located at 732 through 736 9th Street. This request is for variances from the provisions of Article 11, Section 11.3.8.1, pulling from Table 11-2A, to permit the creation of lots with insufficient lot width, insufficient lot depth, and insufficient lot area to place each principal structure on its own respective parcel through a 2-lot subdivision. Regarding proposed Lot 1A, Article 11, Section 11.3.A.1 requires a minimum lot area of 2,250 square feet per dwelling unit for single-family uses in the HU-RD2 district. The applicant is providing 1,839 square feet for the single-family dwelling unit and is seeking a waiver of 357 square feet. A minimum lot width of 30 feet is required. The applicant is providing 22 feet and is seeking a waiver of 8 feet. A minimum lot depth of 90 feet is required. The applicant is providing 86.04 feet and is seeking a waiver of 3.96 feet. Regarding proposed Lot 1B, Article 11, Section 11.3.8.1 requires a minimum lot area of 1,800 square feet per dwelling unit, totaling to 3,600 square feet overall for 2-family uses in the HU-RD2 district. The applicant is providing 1,331 square feet per dwelling unit, or 2,662 square feet total, and is seeking a waiver of 469 square feet per dwelling unit, or 938 square feet total. A minimum lot depth of 90 feet is required, and the applicant is providing 84.51 feet and is seeking a waiver of 5.49 feet. The staff believes the requests do satisfy the 9 criteria as they pertain to the requested variances. Therefore, the staff recommends approval of the requested variances subject to the one proviso laid out in the report.
Is the applicant present for BZA docket number 022-25?
Yes, hi. My name is Frank Farraker. I live at 2228 General Pershing Street.
Thank you. Proceed.
And thank you very much for taking the time in this application. We're requesting that we have the opportunity to enshrine what has been the case for, as far as we can tell, more than 70 years, that these two buildings on this property function as primary structures, and that they have been occupied as permanent residents for a long time. We would think that it's better for the historic fabric of the building in the area that we maintain this as a permanent state of affairs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in support of this request? Anyone here to speak in opposition to BZA docket number 022-25? Seeing none, any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, the motion is in order.
If no other questions, proceed.
Based, in regards to BZA docket 022-25, regarding the proposed Lot 1A, I move for approval for the requested variances of Article 11, Section 11.3.8.1, lot area, Article 11, Section 11.3.8.1, lot width, and Article 11, Section 11.3.8.1, lot depth, in addition to the proposed Lot 1B, Article 11, Section 11.3.8.1, lot area, and Article 11, Section 11.3.8.1, lot depth, finding that both of these lots meet all 9 criteria, and accepting the staff's recommendation for approval, subject to the one noted proviso.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Gonzalez and seconded by Commissioner Eggins. For BZA docket number